"Fly girl mascot," Admiral Lansing called me, his voice slicing through the briefing room like a blade wrapped in charm. Every laugh that followed felt like a nail sealing my coffin. I stood there, staring at him, the man who once owed me his life, the man who didn't even remember it. People say humiliation fades. It doesn't. It hardens. And that day, when he turned his back on me, I swore he'd remember my name again, Erica Brooks, because no one forgets the moment the storm learns your name. The room was too bright, the kind of sterile light that erased every shadow but left the sting of humiliation exposed for all to see. Maps covered the walls, red pins marking zones I had memorized years ago, while a sea of uniforms waited for me to finish speaking. I had spent weeks perfecting the presentation, every flight path, every contingency. It was supposed to be a clean slate, a new beginning. When the Admiral laughed, the sound cut sharper than a turbine blade. The others followed, polite, careful laughter that smelled of fear and loyalty to power. I didn't move, my spine locked, my heartbeat steady only because training demanded it. Their laughter wasn't just at me, it was permission to erase me. When the meeting broke, chairs scraped, and the air changed, no one met my eyes. I walked out alone, the echo of my boots filling the corridor like gunfire in an empty hangar. Outside, the scent of jet fuel mixed with salt, a smell that had once meant survival. That night, I sat on the balcony overlooking Pearl Harbor. The carrier lights shimmered like false constellations across the water. I lifted my glass, the reflection of that room still burning behind my eyes. He thought I was just another officer passing through. He had no idea what name he had just awakened. The days after that meeting fell into a strange kind of quiet, the kind that wasn't peace but punishment. Laughter died the moment I entered a room. In the mess hall, trays clattered, and conversations evaporated mid-sentence. No one met my eyes. The silence was deliberate, rehearsed, military. I'd been marked. Late one evening, the lights in my office flickered. The printer whirred on its own. A single sheet slid out. "You've seen this storm before. B.M." Attached was a map labeled Operation Blue Meridian, a reconnaissance mission from 6 months ago in the North Pacific. The approving signature read, Admiral Victor Lansing. I opened the report. 7 pilots missing, no bodies recovered. Official cause: mechanical failure during severe storm conditions. Yet the weather charts from that night showed clear skies. When I tried to access the classified file, the screen demanded a level higher than mine. Flag command. I couldn't go further. I took a photo, saved it separately. As the room dimmed, the words on that paper echoed inside me. "You've seen this storm before? Yemen, Operation Black Oasis, the mission that had nearly killed me and saved his career." Curiosity turned to dread as I scrolled through the personnel list for Blue Meridian. My breath stopped when I saw the name near the bottom. Lieutenant Ethan Lansing. The blood drained from my hands. The admiral who humiliated me had already buried one ghost, his own brother. The next morning, I found Lieutenant Sarah Cho in the data office, typing quietly in her corner. I asked about the radar logs for Blue Meridian. She hesitated, scanning the empty corridor before whispering, "They're sealed. Ma'am. Only Admiral access. Then maybe we find what's left in the shadows." I said. That night, the data lab hummed like a heartbeat under blue fluorescent light. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up fragments from the backup server. Static. Then, voices. Meridian 6, requesting immediate extraction. Engine failure. Visibility clear. Timestamp 1904. But the public report claimed 1845. Lost contact. Someone had altered the record. Sarah's eyes widened. That's impossible. That would require command clearance. I checked the abort command file. The digital signature appeared, clean and irrefutable. V. Lansing. The man who mocked me had once ordered others to stand down while his brother's plane fell from the sky. As we left, Sarah grabbed my arm. "Do you think he knew what would happen?" I could barely answer. He's been living with it ever since. Outside, the Hawaiian night was calm and endless. But inside my chest a storm I recognized too well began to rise. A sound came back from years ago. A young voice over a broken radio. "Reaper 0, do you copy? We're losing altitude." Back then, I never knew who that pilot was. Now I did. It was Ethan Lansing, the ghost I had failed to save. After Sarah and I uncovered the erased distress signal, the air inside the base shifted. The laughter in the mess hall was gone, replaced by half-finished sentences and turned shoulders. It wasn't distance anymore. It was an order. Lansing didn't have to say a word. One glance from him was enough to make everyone else step away. From my office window, I watched a group of officers laughing near the docks, sunlight glinting off their coffee cups. Their world moved on without me. When I submitted an updated emergency training protocol, the system spat back the reply. "Access denied. Insufficient clearance." They didn't just want silence, they wanted absence. That night, Sarah's voice trembled over the encrypted line. She'd found something, the raw communication logs. I drove to the data wing, the building humming like a steel heart in the dark. On the monitor, the static bled into a desperate voice. "This is Meridian 6, Engine 1 failure. Requesting backup from Reaper frequency. Reaper frequency, my old channel from Yemen." Sarah turned to me, wide-eyed. "They were calling you, weren't they?" I said nothing, scrolling through the next file. A command line appeared. "Abort rescue. Classified operation. Signed, V. Lansing." He hadn't just known. He had ordered them not to go. And Ethan, he'd used my call sign because he believed I would come. The room felt suddenly smaller, the hum of the air vent echoing like wind in a distant storm. Sarah whispered that he killed them to protect a mission. I shook my head. No, he did it to protect himself. The next day, Lansing held a simulation exercise. Every officer was invited, except me. I went anyway, slipping into the back row. Halfway through, he called my name, smiling as if this were all a game. "Major Brooks, why don't you show us how you would have handled Blue Meridian?" I took the controls. Within seconds, the system glitched, storm data corrupted, calculations scrambled, someone had tampered with it. The screen flashed red, mission failed, pilot error. Laughter broke again, colder than before. Lansing's smirk was a blade. When the exercise ended, my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. "Check your locker. Now, inside." A sealed envelope. A photo slid out. Me, Lansing, and Ethan, taken at the 10th anniversary of the Yemen operation. On the back, a single line written in a stranger's hand. "You were there when it began. You'll be there when it ends." Someone else was watching us. Someone who knew everything. I stared at the photo until my pulse steadied. Whatever was coming, it wouldn't just bury the truth, it would bury me with it. I decided to strike back, not with force, but with silence sharper than any weapon. The system thrived on noise, on panic. Silence made them nervous. I found Colonel Mercer, Ethan's old commanding officer, living quietly by the shore in Iwa Beach. His garage smelled of salt, rust, and motor oil. I told him everything. He listened without surprise, then opened a metal drawer and pulled out a weathered hard drive. "I kept this," he said, "in case the truth ever needed a pilot." Inside was the unedited report. Clear skies, full visibility, and an emergency call ignored. The rescue had been canceled on purpose. Lansing's signature was there too, before the timestamp change. When I asked why Mercer hadn't turned it in, he gave a bitter smile, because truth needs rank, and I had none. That night, I returned to my apartment to find the door ajar. Every file, every disk, every trace of my work was gone. On the table, a single note in thick black ink. "Stop digging. Reaper. Even death has limits." Someone inside the system knew my call sign. Lansing wasn't the only one watching. I warned Sarah through a secure line. She replied, "If I go silent, it means they moved me." The next morning, Lansing stood before the entire unit, and announced that I was under investigation for breaching classified data. No one spoke. No one defended me. The silence of 1,000 soldiers was the sound of a verdict. By evening, Sarah was gone. Transferred to Guam, they said. No paperwork, no record, just gone. That night, a package arrived, no name, no return address. Inside was a USB drive and a note. Heard you're still flying blind. Let me be your radar. When I played it, the screen filled with a video. Ethan Lansing, smiling beside his aircraft. Reaper Zero saved my brother once. He said to someone off camera, "I'll make sure she never has to save me." Then, my voice, steady, teasing from the background, "Just don't make me prove it again." The screen went black. Lansing had kept the secret not to protect himself, but to protect me. If the truth about Blue Meridian surfaced, Yemen would too. His career would collapse. Mine would end in court-martial for disobedience. He was trapped by guilt. I was trapped by honor. Outside, rain hissed against the ocean. I opened my laptop and typed one last encrypted message to Sarah, not knowing if she'd ever read it. If they bury me, at least they'll know where to dig. 3 days after Sarah vanished, I was summoned to the Internal Affairs office. The interrogation room was cold enough to sting my lungs, lit by one single, merciless bulb. The only sound was the soft hum of the recorder as a JAG officer read from his file. Major Erica Brooks, you are under investigation for unauthorized data access and potential espionage. I laughed, dry and hollow. They had turned me from a whistleblower into a traitor, a classic move when someone touches what they shouldn't. When I stepped into the corridor, Lansing was waiting. Hands in his pockets, expression carved from stone. You brought this on yourself. Brooks. I faced him squarely. You buried your brother to protect your stars. For a heartbeat. His mask cracked. He turned away without a word. That small tremor in his eyes told me he had heard the recording. Later that day, my apartment was torn apart. Hard drives gone, files erased, drawers gutted. The door was left unlocked, the lights still on. On the table sat my flight helmet, the one engraved with R0. Inside was a folded scrap of paper. Some truths kill the pilot first, whether it was a warning or a threat. I couldn't tell. I drove to Iwa Beach for air, but headlights followed me all the way down the coast. When I stopped, the SUV behind me pulled over. Colonel Mercer stepped out, wind tugging at his collar lined with forgotten stars. They're going to destroy you like they did Sarah, he said quietly. Sarah's dead? He shook his head. No, she's gone where no file reaches. She'd been erased, made to disappear without a trace. From his trunk, Mercer handed me a silver USB. He didn't delete everything. This was in the backup. When I played it, static gave way to Ethan's fading voice, soft but clear through the storm. Tell my brother. She tried. My chest tightened. Lansing had known, heard this, for 10 years and kept silent. Not out of cruelty, but as punishment to himself. That night, when I returned home, the door creaked open before I touched it. The lights were out. A silhouette stood in the living room, back turned. You think exposing me will bring him back? The voice was rough, tired. Lansing! No, I said, but it will bring everyone else home. He sighed. You have no idea what's waiting above me. Then why are you here? Because I'm tired of being the storm. He left the key to his office on the table before walking out, saying only, find what's left before they do. For the first time, I realized Lansing wasn't my enemy anymore. He was leading me straight to the heart of the truth. At dawn, I entered Lansing's office. It was stripped bare. Drawers open, files gone, walls empty. Only a single photo lay face down on the desk. I turned it over. Ethan, smiling in his flight suit, sunlight in his hair, on the back, in shaky black ink, forgive him. He did everything wrong for the right reason. My fingers trembled around the frame. Ethan had known the truth and forgiven his brother before he died. I searched the remaining hard drive and found a hidden folder labeled Project August. Inside were classified emails between Lansing and a Pentagon official. Cover the loss. Do not let the Yemen operation resurface. Blue Meridian wasn't the full story. It was only the shadow of something larger. Yemen was the root, and I was the last loose end. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop. You're opening a classified grave. The walls seemed to close in. Lansing was no longer the only one protecting a secret. The entire department wanted it buried. By nightfall, news reached me that Mercer had been detained for disclosing classified information. When I called the JAG office, they claimed there was no record of his arrest. He, too, had been erased. I was alone now. That evening, I drove to the Punch Bowl Military Cemetery. Rows of white stones glowed under the moonlight. I found Ethan's name and placed my helmet beneath it. They called me Reaper Zero because I flew through death. I whispered. But maybe death's been flying through me all along. When I turned, Lansing was there. Hands in his pockets, eyes dark but steady. He stared at the helmet before speaking. You still don't understand. I'm ready for the court I can't escape. Yours. He wasn't surrendering to the Navy. He was surrendering to truth. As I walked away, his voice followed me through the wind. Meet me at Kailua Beach tomorrow, 1800 hours, alone. It wasn't a threat. It was a summons, a promise that the storm's end was near. The sun was low over Kailua Beach, the water burning gold beneath it. Waves rolled in steady, the wind sharp with salt. He was already there, Admiral Lansing. No medals, no rank, just a man hollowed out by guilt. I stopped a few steps away. For a long moment, the sea spoke for us. Then he said quietly that he once believed the ocean could wash away anything, until he saw his brother's name carved in stone. He lowered his head. He had killed Ethan, not with a bullet, but with pride. Blue Meridian, he admitted, had been tied to the Yemen mission, hidden under CIA oversight. When Ethan was trapped, he ordered abort rescue to protect his career, then ignored the Reaper frequency. He later heard the recording. Tell my brother, she tried, and let the guilt rot inside him for 10 years. When I asked why he had destroyed me, his answer came soft and tired, because I reminded him of Ethan, reckless, brave, everything he wasn't. I handed him Mercer's USB. Ethan's voice broke through the wind. Tell my brother. She did everything right. Lansing fell to his knees. You can't fix what's gone, I said, but you can stop it from happening again. He asked if I wanted him to confess. I told him no. He needed to teach. As I turned away, he called after me, asking why I hadn't destroyed him. Because destroying you wouldn't end the storm. I said, it would feed it. The sun sank behind us, and the storm that bound us finally broke. 2 weeks later, the military tribunal in Honolulu gleamed beneath a gray, mirrored sky. The glass walls reflected the ocean like a boundary between judgment and redemption. I walked in, wearing full-dress uniform, every medal a reminder of what had been lost. Across the room sat Lansing, no insignia, no counsel, just a man stripped down to the weight of truth. The panel of 5 generals looked severe, their questions sharp as scalpels. Major Brooks, do you admit you violated security protocol? Yes. I answered. I accessed restricted data, but I did it to protect the code of honor this uniform stands for. The silence that followed was absolute. Then a voice broke through it. She's right. Lansing rose to his feet. His voice was raw but unwavering. Everything she said is true. My arrogance killed my brother. My fear destroyed her career. For the first time, I didn't see the man who mocked me. I saw the one who finally faced himself. When the council turned to me, a general asked, Major, what do you propose we do with Admiral Lansing? Strip him of rank, not of purpose. I said, assign him to the Naval Academy at Annapolis to teach command responsibility under fire. Let him be the lesson we all ignored. The chamber stayed still. Then a slow nod. Motion approved. As I left, Lansing stopped me. His hand trembled on my shoulder. You didn't bury me. You rebuilt me. I met his eyes and answered softly. Then make it count. Admiral. He wasn't sentenced to prison, but to purpose, forever bound to teach what it truly means to lead. 2 years later, peace no longer felt foreign. My hair was shorter, my skin sun-browned from quiet mornings in Dayton, Ohio. One day, an envelope arrived from the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. Inside the vast hangar, sunlight spilled through the glass roof, glinting across the suspended F-35 like a monument to ghosts. On its silver skin were the words, Reaper 02, she brought everyone home. I stood there, breath caught between pride and ache. A young cadet approached. Saluting. Ma'am, Admiral Lansing begins every ethics class with your story. He says storms end when courage speaks. I smiled. Does he still say that too much? She laughed. Every time. I looked up at the sky. Clear. Endless. Impossibly still. Maybe now, I whispered. The sky finally forgave us. Far above, a jet roared softly through the clouds. Not the sound of war, but peace finally finding its voice. 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 Finding its voice.